The great hall of Zathra was full of whispers. Tall silver columns reached high above, and golden light fell on the marble floor. At the center stood Princess Shira, her face hidden behind a long silk veil. It was a tradition for the people of Zathra. No one could bond with the princess until they saw her face. But there was a rule: even stronger, anyone who dared to lift the veil without passing the sacred tests would be cursed or killed. Many warriors had come before. Strong alien men from distant stars, proud and brave, all failed. None had dared. To touch the veil, the fear was too strong. Curse was too dangerous. Some believed her face was horrible. Others believed that even looking at it would bring madness. But today was different. The tall doors of the hall opened slowly. Stranger entered a human. His name was Jack. He looked simple compared to the tall armored aliens around him. He wore no shining armor. His face was calm. His eyes did not show fear. The guards stepped forward, but the princess raised her hand. "Let him come," she said. The court fell silent as Jack walked toward the throne. His steps were steady. Hands were empty. He stopped a few feet from the princess and bowed slightly, but he did not kneel. The chief advisor, an old alien with green skin and sharp horns, stepped forward. "Human, you stand before Princess Shira. You know our law. No one can bond with her until they first see her face. But all who have tried have failed. None dare to lift the veil. Do you wish to die here today?" Jack looked at the advisor and then back at the princess. "I am not here to die," he said calmly. "I am here because I am not afraid. I do not need to see her face to know who she is." The court gasped. The princess tilted her head slightly. Her voice was soft but clear. "Why are you not afraid?" "My face is said to bring madness." Jack smiled gently. "I have seen many faces, some beautiful, some strange. But a face is not the soul. I wish to know you, not your skin." The princess's fingers moved slightly, as if she was thinking about lifting the veil herself. But the chief advisor stepped between them. "Enough," he shouted. "If you truly wish to bond with her, you must pass the test. Only then can you see what no one else has seen." Jack did not flinch. "What is the test?" The advisor's eyes narrowed. "You must spend one night in the Shadow Forest. If you survive until dawn, you will have earned the right." A low murmur spread across the hall. The Shadow Forest was a place of nightmares. No one who entered had ever returned. Strange creatures lived there, creatures that hunted in silence and darkness. The princess spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Many have tried. All have failed. You are human. You are not as strong as our warriors. You should leave before it is too late." Jack took a step closer. His voice was calm but firm. "Strength is not always in muscles. I accept your challenge." The chief advisor laughed coldly. "Oh, so be it. Tonight, when the twin moons rise, you will enter the Shadow Forest. If you return by dawn, you may see her face. If not, well, then your bones will join the others." The guards moved to take Jack away, but the princess raised her hand again. "Wait," she said, looked at Jack closely, though her face was still hidden. "You speak with courage. But remember, courage is not enough." In the Shadow Forest, Jack met her gaze. Though he could not see her eyes behind the veil, he felt her watching him closely. "I understand," he said, "but I will return." As the guards led Jack away, the court remained silent. Many believed they had seen the last of this foolish human. No human had ever entered the Shadow Forest and lived. No one expected to see Jack again, but deep inside, Princess Shira felt something strange. A tiny spark of hope, the first time someone had looked at her not with fear or greed, but with curiosity and kindness. Could this human be different? As the sun began to set, the shadows grew longer, and the twin moons rose slowly into the darkening sky. The test would soon begin. And in the Shadow Forest, dark shapes moved, waiting for their next prey. Jack was ready. The night air was cold as Jack stood at the edge of the Shadow Forest. Strange sounds echoed from inside: growls, whispers, and the rustle of unseen creatures. The trees seemed alive, their twisted branches like claws, reaching out to grab anyone who dared enter. The guards gave him one last warning. No one survives. This forest, human. You can still turn back. But Jack didn't move. His mind was calm. He had faced many dangers in his life, but this place felt different. It wasn't just about survival. It was a test of trust. Trust between him and a princess he hadn't even seen. Behind him, Princess Shira watched from her balcony. Hidden behind her veil, she felt something stir in her heart, a mix of fear and curiosity. Would this human truly return? Jack took his first step into the shadows. The thick mist curled around his feet. The air smelled of damp earth and strange flowers. Somewhere far off, a wolf-like howl rose, followed by silence. As Jack walked deeper, the forest seemed to close around him. Strange glowing eyes blinked from the dark. Branches cracked behind him, but he didn't run. He kept walking carefully, listening to every sound. Suddenly, he heard a soft whimper. Jack froze. It was not the sound of a monster. It was small, almost like a child. Followed the sound carefully and found a creature trapped under a fallen branch, a small animal with silver fur and wide, frightened eyes. Jack knelt down slowly. The creature trembled, but did not attack. "You're not my enemy," Jack whispered. "Peace." Gently, he lifted the branch, freeing the creature. Looked at him for a moment, then darted into the darkness. But before disappearing, it gave a soft crawl almost. Like a thank dash, you dot unseen. Far away, Princess Shira watched through a floating drone. She saw Jack's kindness. Strange, she thought. He helps even the weakest in the forest. Our warriors only fight. He shows mercy. Deeper into the forest, the real challenge began. Jack felt eyes watching him from every side. A dark shadow leapt at him. Suddenly a beast, with long claws and burning red eyes. Jack rolled aside just in time. He didn't try to fight it directly. Instead, he grabbed a sharp branch from the ground and backed slowly into a tight space. Between two trees where the beast couldn't easily attack, the creature snarled, pacing in front of him. Jack waited quietly, heart pounding but mind steady. He remembered an old trick from Earth predators, sometimes gave up when prey did not panic. Minutes passed. The beast sniffed the air, growled again, but then slowly turned and slipped back into the shadows. Jack let out a slow breath. He was still alive. Time moved slowly in the shadow forest. The darkness was thick, the air cold, but Jack stayed sharp. He moved carefully, marking trees with small cuts so he wouldn't walk in circles. He rested only when safe and drank from a small stream he found. Always alert. At one point, strange ghost-like lights appeared between the trees, dancing slowly. The lights whispered his name, Jack. Jack, come closer. Felt sleepy suddenly, as if their voices could pull his mind into a dream. But he shook his head and kept walking. Not tonight, he whispered to himself. As the night went on, Jack thought about the princess. Why is she hidden? He wondered. Why do they fear her face? But deep down, he didn't care about her face. What mattered to him was her spirit. Her courage to defy her own traditions, her quiet strength to let a stranger take this deadly test. Far away on her balcony, Princess Shira felt the hours pass. The court around her whispered that the human would soon be dead, but she watched the forest closely. Her heart beat faster than usual. Finally, as the dark sky began to lighten and the first hint of dawn appeared, Jack stepped out of the shadow. Forest, his clothes were torn, his face was tired, his arms were scratched. But he was alive. The guards who had waited all night gasped in shock. He survived. One whispered. Jack stood straight and looked up at the princess's balcony. Said nothing. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. Princess Shira rose slowly. She raised her hand for silence. Then she spoke softly, but everyone heard her words. He has passed the test. The human has earned the right to see my face. A new tension filled the air. Some looked afraid. Others were curious, but all eyes turned to the princess. She'll really show her face now? As Jack smiled quietly, the princess lowered her gaze, hiding a small smile behind her veil. The next day would change everything. Morning light touched the silver towers of Zathra, but inside the great hall, the air was heavy with whispers. No one could believe it, Jack. The human had returned alive from the Shadow Forest. Not even the bravest alien warriors had done this. But Princess Shira said nothing that morning. She remained behind her veil, quiet, thoughtful. Inside her heart, something had changed. For years, she had been told that no one could truly care for her not without seeing her face. But Jack had looked beyond all that. He'd faced the forest's dangers and survived. In the garden outside the hall, Jack sat quietly, resting his tired body. Small alien birds chirped around him, curious about this strange visitor. His mind wandered back to the dark night he had just survived. He remembered every sound, every shadow, and the strange feeling that the forest itself had been watching him. He realized now that the forest had more secrets than anyone believed. Suddenly, an old woman appeared before him, dressed in long gray robes. Her eyes were bright and sharp. She was the keeper of the Shadow Forest, a guardian who lived at its edge. No one had seen her for many years. "You surprised them all, human," she said with a slow smile. "But did you see what the forest truly showed you?" Jack nodded slowly. "I saw more than monsters. I saw creatures trying to protect themselves. I saw fear and sadness." The old woman's eyes sparkled. "Good. The forest tests more than strength. It tests the heart. You showed kindness even to a weak animal. That is why it let you live." Jack looked thoughtful. He had not fought. Like a warrior, he had survived by respect and care. Meanwhile, inside her chambers, Princess Shira watched the sky. She could not explain why this human's survival mattered to her. All her life, men had tried to claim her. All had failed. But Jack was different. He had not come with pride or greed. He came with curiosity and courage, and now he had earned the right to see her face. But trouble was rising in the shadows of the court. The chief advisor gathered a small group of elders. They spoke in hushed voices. "The human must not be allowed to bond with her," the advisor whispered. "If he does, our traditions will break. Our people will question everything." Another elder leaned in. "Then we must stop him before it is too late." That evening, the princess sent a message to Jack. "Come to my private garden," it read. Jack arrived quietly. The moon shone on silver flowers, and small glowing insects floated in the air. "Duh." The princess stood at the center, still hidden behind her veil. She turned as he approached. "You did what no one else could," she said softly. "You faced the forest. You respected its life. And now you have earned the right to see me." Jack's voice was steady. "I did not come for a reward. I came because I wanted to know the truth." The princess stepped closer. Her fingers trembled as they touched the veil's edge. "Do you still want to see me? Even if I look strange to your eyes?" Jack smiled gently. "I never cared about your face, princess. I care about who you are." For a moment, her hands froze. Then slowly, she lowered the veil. Her face was unlike any human's. Smooth blue skin, silver markings glowing softly along her cheeks, eyes deep and shining like stars. Her beauty was not of earth, but it was beautiful all the same. Jack's smile grew wider. "You're not what they fear. You're extraordinary." The princess's heart raced. For the first time in her life, she felt seen not as a hidden figure behind a veil, but as herself. But even as this bond began to form, danger lurked. High above, hidden in the shadows, a small drone watched them. The chief advisor's spies were ready. Plans were already in motion to stop this bond before it could truly begin. The princess sensed something was wrong, but for this one moment, she allowed herself to feel peace. Jack spoke softly. "Tomorrow, we change everything." The princess nodded, her silver eyes shining. But outside the garden walls, betrayal waited, and the real test was yet to come. At sunrise, the palace of Zathra felt heavy with tension. The rumor had spread across the city. The human had survived the Shadow Forest. And now Princess Shira had shown him her face. For generations, no outsider had seen her. For generations, her face had been called dangerous, cursed, or too alien for others to understand. Yet Jack, a simple human, had stood before her and smiled. In her private chamber, Shira sat quietly. Her veil lay folded beside her for the first time. She touched her bare face gently, still unsure how she felt. It had always been hidden from the world. But last night, when Jack looked at her without fear, she felt free. Suddenly, her advisor stormed into the chamber without permission. His sharp horns gleamed in the morning light, and his long robe trailed behind him. "Princess," he hissed, "you have broken sacred law. The court demands an answer. The elders demand that this bond be stopped." Shira stood slowly, her silver markings glowing faintly on her cheeks. "I followed the ancient rules," she said firmly. "He passed the test, survived the forest. He earned the right." The advisor's eyes narrowed. "A human, a weak outsider. You disgrace your people." Shira's voice stayed calm. "It is time for change." Outside in the courtyard, Jack prepared for the official bond ceremony. Guards watched him carefully. He could feel their anger and suspicion, but he kept a calm smile. He knew they didn't trust him. He knew some wished him gone. As Jack waited, a shadow moved close behind him, a servant holding a small cup of water. But the servant's hand trembled strangely, and inside the water was a slow poison. Princess Shira stepped onto the balcony at that very moment. Her sharp gaze caught the trembling hand. Without a word, she raised her finger and pointed. "Stop," she commanded. The guards froze. The servant dropped the cup, and the poison spilled onto the ground. Jack turned slowly, realizing how close he had come to death. The princess's voice rang out across the courtyard. "Even now, some here wish harm upon the one who passed our greatest test. But I say this, the test is over. I have made my choice." Gasps filled the air. The chief advisor stepped forward, defiant. "You cannot choose him. The law demands." The law demanded he survive the shadow forest. Shira interrupted. Her voice was sharp now, full of authority. "And he did. More than any warrior before him. He did not run. He did not fear me. He showed courage and kindness." Jack watched her quietly, respecting her strength as she faced her own people. Shira lifted her veil high into the air, let it fall to the ground before the entire court. Her bare face shone in the morning light blue skin, silver eyes glowing markings. Many in the crowd had never seen it before. Some turned away, afraid of the ancient stories. Others stared, realizing she was no monster. Jack stepped forward calmly and took her hand. "She is not a curse," he said loudly, his voice clear and steady. "She is brave and kind, and her face is not something to fear." A long silence followed. Then, one by one, some of the younger aliens lowered their heads in respect. They did not turn away. They did not cry out. But high above, from the shadows of a tall tower, the chief advisor watched with cold eyes. He whispered to himself, "This is not over, human." In the garden below, Shira felt both relief and danger. She knew her people were beginning to change, but she also knew that there were still enemies. Close by, she turned to Jack. "Today you have shown them something new, but tomorrow they will test us again." Jack squeezed her hand gently. "Then we will stand together tomorrow too." For the first time in her life, Princess Shira felt like she was not alone. But as the two stood before the court, far away, secret plots were already forming, and the next challenge would not wait long. That night, after the ceremony, the palace felt quiet, but underneath the silence, tension still burned. In the grand halls, whispers spread like smoke. The human has bonded with the princess. What will this mean for us? The chief advisor disappeared into the shadows, meeting secretly with his loyal followers. "This human threatens everything," he said coldly. "If the people accept him, our power is lost. We must act, soon." But inside her private chamber, Princess Shira sat close to Jack under the soft glow of the moonlight. For the first time, she sat without her veil before anyone, and she felt strangely at peace. Jack looked at her calmly. "You've been quiet," he said gently. Xira gave a sad smile. "I have hidden my face for all my life, Jack. I was told that my appearance would frighten others, that my face would bring dishonor. But now, I wonder if that was ever true." She took a deep breath, her silver markings glowing softly. "They told me that anyone who saw my face would go mad. They told me that no one would ever want me. As I am, that's why this rule existed. You must see her before you bond." But in truth, it was a lie. To protect tradition, not me. Jack listened carefully, leaning forward. "So this veil was not for your safety, but to control you." Shira nodded slowly. "Yes, they wanted me to stay hidden and alone. But when you looked at me without fear, you broke their lie." She reached out, gently touching Jack's cheek. "You showed me what I truly am, not a curse, not a monster, but a woman, a princess, someone who deserves to be seen." Jack smiled softly, holding her hand. "Didn't break their lie, you did. You chose to reveal yourself." For a moment, they sat together in silence. Shira felt warmth for the first time, not from sunlight or the stars, but from being accepted. But outside her chamber, danger crept closer. In a secret hall of the palace, assassins gathered quietly. Cloaked in black, the chief advisor gave his final order. "Tonight," he whispered, "the human dies. And if the princess stands in the way?" Unaware of this dark plan, Shira and Jack shared quiet conversation, talking about Earth, about human life, about stars and stories Jack remembered from his childhood. Shira laughed softly at one of Jack's simple jokes, a sound she hadn't made in years, but suddenly she grew serious again. "There is something you must know, Jack," she said quietly. "Our traditions won't break easily, even if the people respect you today. There are still many who will fight against us." Jack nodded. "I know, but we can't go back. We've already crossed the line." Shira took a deep breath. "Then I will stand beside you, no matter what happens tomorrow." At that very moment, far below their chamber, a group of shadowy figures climbed the outer palace wall, moving like ghosts. Their mission was clear: kill the human before sunrise. The bond between Shira and Jack was growing strong, but the forces against them were moving faster than they realized. Jack looked at her seriously and said, "Thank you for trusting me, for letting me see you." Shira smiled sadly. "I never expected that the first to see me would be a human. And yet I am glad it was you." But as they held each other's gaze, Shira felt a sudden chill. She didn't know why, but something was wrong. Trouble was close. Danger was near. And before the night was over, this peaceful moment would be shattered. The moon hung high above the palace of Zethra, shining down on its silver walls. Inside the princess's chamber, all seemed peaceful. Princess Shira sat close to Jack, her heart lighter than it had ever been. She had confessed her fears. She had let him see her face. And now, for the first time in her life, she felt free. But far below them, in the dark corridors, shadows moved. The assassins, loyal to the chief advisor, were ready. Blades coated with poison glinted in the moonlight as they crept silently. Up the palace walls, the chief advisor himself stood near the garden, watching from the shadows. His plan was simple: kill the human before sunrise and blame it on a wild beast. Without Jack, the princess would have no choice but to return to tradition. In her chamber, Shira suddenly felt uneasy. A cold wind slipped through the open balcony. She rose and walked to the window, her silver eyes scanning the gardens below. Jack noticed her expression. "What is it?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "I don't know. But something feels wrong." At that exact moment, a sharp noise echoed outside, a guard's faint cry, quickly silenced. Jack stood up, his senses sharp. He was a soldier once, back on Earth, and he knew that sound. An ambush. He grabbed Shira's hand. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Suddenly, the balcony curtains burst open. 3 assassins in dark cloaks leapt into the room, blades flashing. Their movements were fast, silent, deadly. Jack reacted instantly. He grabbed a heavy chair and swung it at the first attacker, knocking him off balance. The second assassin lunged toward Shira, but she ducked quickly and struck him with a small metal vase. The third assassin circled behind Jack, blade raised, but Jack turned just in time and blocked the strike with the broken chair leg. He pushed forward, fighting with determination, not skill. His strength was in his courage, his instinct to protect. Shira did not stand helpless. She grabbed a decorative staff from the wall and swung it with surprising strength, striking one of the assassins in the leg. The man fell with a grunt. The fight was short but fierce. When it was over, 2 assassins lay unconscious, and the third fled into the night, vanishing over the palace walls. Jack was breathing hard, but unhurt. Shira's hands trembled, but her eyes were fierce. For the first time, she had fought for herself and for him. Moments later, the palace guards burst into the room, too late to help. Behind them came the chief advisor, feigning concern. "What happened here?" he demanded. Jack stared at him coldly. "You know exactly what happened." The advisor's face remained calm. "It's nonsense. This is a disaster, an attack on the princess. An attack on a human guest? We must investigate." But Shira stepped forward before Jack could speak. Her voice was clear, commanding, "Enough, advisor. I know you sent them. Do not insult me with lies." Silence fell over the room. The guards shifted nervously, unsure what to do. The advisor's mask of calm began to crack. Jack added, "You fear change? You fear the future? That's why you tried to kill me." The advisor's eyes narrowed. "I do not fear the future. I fear a future where tradition is thrown aside for a stranger. For a human?" Shirei raised her chin proudly. "Then you fear the future itself, because change is coming and you cannot stop it." The guards looked between Shira and the advisor. Slowly, one by one, they stepped back from the advisor's side. Their loyalty was shifting. They had seen the humans survive the shadow forest. They had seen the princess reveal her face. And now, they had seen her stand against betrayal. The advisor realized he had lost. He hissed in anger, then turned and fled into the shadows. Shira turned to Jack, her voice soft but firm. "It's not over yet. He will not give up easily." Jack nodded. "Then neither will we." For now, the attack had failed, but the danger was far from gone. Their bond was growing stronger, but so were the enemies around them. Tomorrow, they would face the court itself and prove whether love and courage could truly defeat ancient fear. The sun rose slowly over Zathra, casting golden light across the city. But inside the palace, all eyes were on the grand court, where Princess Shira and Jack now stood side by side. The great hall was full. Nobles, warriors, elders, and citizens. They had all heard the rumors. The human had survived the shadow forest, seen the princess's face, and now lived. Worse, for some, he had fought off assassins and uncovered betrayal at the heart of their council. At the far end of the hall, the chief advisor reappeared, his face calm, but his eyes dark with anger. He stood with a small group of elders who still clung tightly to the old traditions. The head elder raised his staff and spoke loudly. "Human, why have you come here? What makes you think you are worthy to bond with our princess? You are not of our people." Jack stepped forward calmly. His voice was steady. "I came not because I thought I was worthy, but because I wanted to understand. I survived your forest, I respected your traditions, I protected your princess even when you tried to kill me. Stand here not as your enemy, but as someone who sees her for who she is." A murmur spread through the hall. Some nodded thoughtfully, others still looked unsure. Princess Shira raised her voice next, her silver eyes shining, her face uncovered for all to see. "You taught me to hide my face," she said to her people. "You told me that it would bring fear and dishonor. But look at me now. I am not a curse. I am not a monster. I am your princess." She took Jack's hand firmly. "And today, I choose this human, not because he is strong, but because he looked at me without fear, without greed. He faced the test of the forest and the test of betrayal. He still stands. For a moment the court was completely silent. Even the chief advisor could find no words. Then from the back of the hall, a voice spoke. A young warrior one of the next generation stepped forward and bowed his head. If the princess chooses him, I will respect her choice. Another voice followed, then another. Slowly, one by one, the people of Zethra lowered their heads, a gesture of respect. In acceptance, the chief advisor's face turned pale. He realized his time was over. His grip on power had broken not by force, but by the quiet courage of a human and the bold heart of his princess. Jack squeezed Shira's hand gently. You did this, he whispered. Exra smiled, her markings. Glowing softly, no, we did this together. In that moment, the bond ceremony began. The ancient rites were spoken, but this time something new was added. For the first time in Zathran history, a human stood before them as an equal. And when the final words were spoken, Shira lifted her face proudly, without veil. Shira stood together, hand in hand, not just as two people from different worlds, but as a promise of a new future. The crowd erupted into applause, louder than anyone expected. Even some of the elders clapped slowly, realizing that change could no longer be stopped. Outside, the twin suns of Zathra rose higher in the sky, shining down on a city that would never be the same. And as Jack looked into Shira's silver eyes, he felt at peace, not because she was a princess, not because he had won, but because he had helped her find her freedom. And together they had shown that courage and kindness could break even the oldest traditions.